political analyst, Dr. Levy Ndou, to weigh in on the story. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Levy. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon to you, Lizel. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
All right, so on the back of the ruling, the court having found that there's no reasonable prospect of success in an appeal of the February ruling. Why is the ANC at this point, in your opinion, refusing to hand over the documents?
Well, I think there are a few things that we need to look at. Firstly, is the fact that indeed there is cadre deployment that has been going on, and that is why the ANC also have a committee that deals with cadre deployment. At the same time, there is a history of looking at the previous records by the Democratic Alliance. You'll recall the spy tapes that the Democratic Alliance wanted to get their hands on, and they ended up getting their hands on, and that led to what is actually going on with former President Jacob Zuma. And I think what the DA strategy is that they want to link cadre deployment with President Ramaphosa so that he should also shoulder the blame for the many wrong things that appears to have happened in the South African public sector. They talk about the deployment of certain individuals in the SOEs. They talk about the deployment of certain individuals in the different state departments. And it will therefore mean in the mind of the DA that when SOEs are collapsing, when there are other services that are not being provided effectively by government, President Ramaphosa was heading the deployment committee should also share the blame, so that when they argue further, politicizing this matter further, they should have sufficient grounds to ensure that cadre deployment is the thing of the past. There are certain things that we also need to look at. When the ANCs might be appearing to be refusing to hand over the documents, the question would be, were the minutes of the cadre deployment committee meetings recorded? Are all the minutes or discussions kept somewhere where they could be retrieved? Even if they have to retrieve this information or hand over this information, will they be in a position to provide all the documents that the Democratic Alliance might be looking at? So that is another area that, in my view, the ANC might also try to navigate onto.
So on the back of that context, and thank you very much for that, Dr. Ndou, I wonder if at this point we can look at the issue of cadre deployment. And given the state of affairs in South Africa, can cadre deployment be blamed for the widespread corruption, maladministration, mismanagement in government at this point, even state capture, given the fact that the ANC is in the government as custodian based on the social contract that we'd entered?
It will actually depend on the evidence that one would have been able to get. The point here is that indeed there is cadre deployment. It does not only happen in South Africa, it happens in many other countries. What I think appears to be the challenge on the part of the DA would be an element of abuse or the abuse of cadre deployment, where certain individuals who would not even fit to occupy certain positions would therefore be given positions either in the public or in the private sector, and those people would actually fail to deliver. At the same time, what we can also look at would be people who might have been deployed in the SOEs or in some state departments for the purposes of ensuring that there is corruption or corrupt activities going on. And I think what the DA is trying to do is to check whether indeed President Ramaphosa has been central in deploying people who had ulterior motives in the SOEs and also in government.
So given the sensitive timing and the sensitive information that obviously can't be divulged at this point, If the ANC has indeed something to hide regarding its deployment candidate list, could making these documents perhaps public have any impact in the outcome of elections, perhaps also as we enter into the official campaigning season?
Well, it will depend on the extent in which cadre deployment was being exercised by the ANC. It will also depend on as to whether there were decisions that were taken to deploy people that will not deliver, or deploy people who would actually be going there only for the purposes of corruption. If we look at the timing in politics matters a lot. And my sense is that even though it has taken time for the Democratic Alliance to be allowed to get these documents, this is the right timing, because this will give the Democratic Alliance something to talk about as we approach 2024 elections. Timing matters a lot in politics, and I think this is the right timing for the Democratic Alliance. Whether they are given the documents or not, they can still use this in order to campaign for 2024.
How can cadre deployment be reconciled with democratic traditions as well, in your opinion?
Well, politicians would have a situation where they have to appoint cadres or people that can work with them in their political offices. Politicians would prefer to appoint people who understand their policies well, people who understand the mandate of the different political parties, so that their missions and their vision is actually being easily driven whilst they are in government. Cadre deployment should also be done in order to enhance and ensure that there is proper service delivery. And if it acts contrary to what I've said above, then that is not cadre deployment, and cadre deployment, in my view, is therefore being abused.
Dr. Ndou, thank you for your time with us here on the SABC and for helping us unpack and understand that better. Again, the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg dismissed the application for leave to appeal the cadre deployment records ruling.